Welcome to the Vibrant Visibility Podcast. Being visible as a soul-led business owner isn't just about the practical strategies, marketing tips, and tech systems. It's also about the internal systems, the safety of your nervous system, the somatic connection, and the embodiment of being a badass CEO that will support you in all of the ups and downs of entrepreneurship. And I'm here to share all of that with you on this show. I'm your host, Shawnee Arsenault, a registered nurse turned visibility coach and business mentor for heart-centered coaches and healers. I created a six-figure coaching practice in my first year of business and scaled to multiple six figures my second year, all in the middle of getting pregnant with my first baby and becoming a new mama. If I can do this entrepreneurship thing, I know you can too. If you're ready to learn how to be a CEO in a way that feels aligned with your heart, become a lighthouse for the people that you're meant to serve, feel free to authentically express yourself and be a magnet for success, and grow your coaching business in a way that is sustainable and fulfilling, I can't wait to be in your ear along for the ride. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Vibrant Visibility Podcast. Today, I have a really fun episode for you. We're going to be diving into some nervous system stuff. I get a lot of questions about this. I get a lot of questions from people about somatic work. And it's interesting because I don't really see a lot of people talking about somatic work whenever it comes to applying it to the way that you show up in your business. And it's been really fun to kind of tease this out, to be able to support my clients in this area, because there's only so much strategy that you can learn until it doesn't work, right? You can have the best strategy in the world, but if there's that underlying resistance that your body, not so much your mind, that your body is presenting with, we do have to go deeper. That's like the invitation for us to go deeper. And so the topic surrounding this episode today is going to be around your nervous system. And your nervous system doesn't want you to be seen, and it has good reason to. And I'm going to talk about why, if you've ever felt kind of like you know what to do to be visible in your business, like I said, you know the strategy, but whenever it's actually time to show up, whenever it's time to actually execute, something inside you stops you, right? If you can even think about a moment where you know you have to connect with people, you know you have to be seen, be visible, tell people what you do, talk about your coaching business, and then you start to feel that like sensation in your body, your heart's racing, your mind completely blanks, you suddenly have no idea what you do and no idea how to talk about coaching. You feel like creating content or showing up live feels totally impossible. That is totally normal. I want to normalize that. And your nervous system is behind it. It's the culprit here. But what I want to introduce to you is this idea that it's not wrong, right? It's not wrong that you have such intense resistance to being seen. I think I've told this story before, but the first time I ever went live on Instagram, I had the most intense, visceral reaction before I pressed that go live button. I can remember it like it was yesterday, like my heart was beating out of my chest. I felt like I was sweating and it was freezing outside. I was outside. And I could feel my brain just like wanting to shut down and not press go live. And I maybe just wanted to make excuses and delay it and not do it. But it is so helpful whenever you can understand why your body is responding that way and have tools in place to like kind of get you through those responses in a really healthy way so that you're not always avoiding it. You're not always running away. You're not always like morphing yourself to be what other people want you to be or what you think other people want you to be. So today we're going to talk about why the nervous system reacts this way, to get like a really, really good understanding of what the somatics of it all is. We're going to break down some of those responses, right? Many of you are familiar with these responses: fight, flight, freeze, fawn. And we'll also talk about maybe specific examples of how they show up whenever you're trying to be visible for your business, and how these responses are actually trying to protect you. They're trying to, preserve that really sensitive part of you that maybe went through an experience that was scary or went through an experience that was maybe a little bit traumatizing. So I'll give you some strategies, some somatic tools, exercises, strategies to move through those safely and show up authentically. So, yeah, why does being visible feel like a threat to the nervous system? Because that's essentially what it is when you think about the heart racing and the sweating and the shallow breathing. Like, I remember how, like, any feeling of being nervous, whenever you're feeling nervous about something, or scared, you can sense in your body what that feels like, right? And the reason why being seen, being visible feels like a threat to the nervous system is it's your nervous system's job. It's your nervous system's job to keep you safe by detecting and responding to perceived threats. And unfortunately, visibility triggers the same response as actual danger, like being chased by a predator. There's a few reasons why visibility feels unsafe. There's, of course, like that subconscious programming, that evolutionary wiring. I talked about this in the last episode. Rejection used to mean exile from the tribe. Back in the old days, like it meant exile, and it meant you didn't have support, resources, and so it was a threat to your survival. So from an evolutionary standpoint, that's kind of what rejection represented. And then it's also tied to a lot of your own personal experiences. So any childhood wounds, like being laughed at in class or told to tone it down, or, feeling invisible, feeling like you didn't matter. So a lot of those are at play here. One of the things that comes up for me is anytime I would cry, I would be told by so many adults, so many authoritative figures to stop crying. Right. So it made me feel unsafe to feel any kind of intense emotion. And so whenever I show that intense emotion when I'm being visible, I don't so much react this way now, but it used to feel so dangerous for me. It used to feel so activating. So there's the personal experiences, the evolutionary wiring, and then there's also that social conditioning, right? The fear of judgment, fear of criticism, and an online scrutiny. I think especially whenever you're using social media and the internet as a visibility avenue for your business, it feels less predictable, and in ways it can feel a little bit more dangerous. Everyone has their opinions. Everybody is kind of behind their computer screens, not connecting human to human, not looking you in the eye, and they're making snap judgments from whatever content you post. And so there is that like social conditioning of, I have to present a certain way, I have to be a certain way. And I want to normalize all of this. I want to normalize all of this for you. Your nervous system isn't broken. There's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with you reacting this way to being more visible. And, if you are really scared to put yourself out there and be seen and be authentic and be real and weird and awkward, it's a normal response for your body to try to protect you against any of those perceived threats. It's protecting you based on outdated survival mechanisms, though. And so that's the key here that I want you to remember is these survival mechanisms are outdated. The truth of who you are is very different from all of these conditioned responses and automatically programmed responses. Okay, so I want to break down, that's just like the general rundown of why the nervous system reacts this way. Like, I'm not going to get into the physiological stuff of this all, but I'd actually dive into the physiological stuff inside of my program, Vibrant Visibility. And it was really fun to kind of like break it down from like a science level. And like me being a nurse, like I love kind of using that scientific part of my brain. But that's the general overview of why your body reacts this way whenever you are about to post online or record a video or go to a networking event or go to a speaking engagement, right? Like that's why your body reacts that way, is because it is programmed from outdated survival mechanisms. It's an automatic thing. It's not something we can control, unfortunately. So I'm going to break down the 4 different like nervous system responses whenever it comes to visibility and talk about how they actually show up, just so you can be aware of what these are and start to notice them in your day-to-day life as you operate in your business. How is this actually showing up for you? So you can be aware. That awareness is the first step to actually moving through it and being able to overcome it and to not have these responses be so paralyzing. So the first response we're going to talk about is the fight response. So you all know, and if you don't, in the sympathetic nervous system, we have fight or flight. So you're either staying and fighting or you're fleeing, you're running away. So the fight response in your business looks like hyper control and perfectionism. Right. So whenever it comes to visibility, you are over preparing, right? You're over explaining what you do. You're overworking to control certain outcomes. Whenever I think about being on a sales call or a proposal call with a potential client, you state your price and then you come up with all of these reasons why you're priced the way that you are. And you're like trying to convince, right? That's what fight response looks like. You're fixating on minor details. So you're spending, 3 hours on one Instagram caption, perfecting it. You're becoming defensive over any kind of criticism, or you're trying to prove yourself. So those are the ways that it presents and manifests in your actual business and in the ways that you show up to be visible. And what it's actually protecting you from, what this fight response is actually protecting you from, is the pain of being misunderstood or misjudged, right? It's that deep fear of losing control over how people perceive you, so you fight to gain that control. How many of you are listening to this and you're like, yep. Like, even as I'm saying it, I'm like, damn, this is this is so real. So how do we work through the fight response? There's a few different things. And you're going to notice a pattern as I talk about how to move through these nervous system responses as you step into more and more visibility. But you always want to start with grounding, right? Anytime your nervous system is activated or you're triggered, grounding practices is where we start. So anything as simple as like pressing your feet on the floor, taking a few deep breaths. If you're into breath work, doing, 2 minutes of active breath, right? So that's one way to slow yourself down. The thing that we want to do in the fight response is slow down. Okay. Your body is working in overdrive. Your mind is working in overdrive to defend you, to protect you from that fear of losing control, from that fear of being misunderstood or misjudged. So grounding yourself, taking a moment to slow down. I always love incorporating movement whenever I notice that I'm in fight response too, because it kind of loosens me up, right? It gives me a place to release that energy. So shaking it out, pushing against a wall. I like to dance around, jump around, maybe even go for a walk. That can be helpful. And then I always kind of like bring it back to how can I make my body feel safe to be seen in this moment, right? Even if it's just that simple affirmation of like, it's safe to be seen. It's safe to be seen. Even if I don't show up perfectly, it's safe. I am okay. I am not going to die. So those are the ways that I would kind of work through the fight response. The next response we're going to talk about is flight. Okay, so this is going to show up in your business as avoidance and procrastination. In visibility, whenever you're trying to be visible for your business, if you can imagine any times that you have like constantly delayed posting something or delayed launching something, waiting for like the perfect time to feel ready, maybe you fill your time with busy work instead of actual visibility actions. Like you're sitting there tinkering with your website or formatting your business cards or making all of these designs on Canva that you're never going to use. Hyper focusing on consuming more knowledge before taking action. So if you are over consuming like courses and business marketing related content and you're not actually doing anything to execute, to apply any of that knowledge, that's kind of how it shows up in your business when you're trying to be visible. All right, how are we doing? After I'm saying all that, like, is any of that resonating with you? Are you nodding your head? Do you feel called out? Because, I mean, these are really real situations. Like, I think all of us are bound to fall into one of these traps in some way. So I just want to, again, normalize that this is okay. There's nothing wrong with any of this. So what the flight response is trying to protect you from, it's trying to protect you from the fear of being exposed or making a mistake. It's that like possibility of failure. You know, if I don't post, I can't fail. If I don't offer to work with people, then, you know, I can't get rejected, right? And so the way that I would work through this particular response is going to be similar to what I talked about with fight, but you really want to work on a concept called titration here. And I think I've talked about this on the podcast before, but I go deep into this in Vibrant Visibility, my group coaching program. Titration means small steps, really small steps to stretch you out of your comfort zone, to stretch your comfort zone a little bit. So I talk about this with my clients all the time in my group coaching program. If you eventually want to maybe go live on Facebook or Instagram, or, you know, do some kind of like live component to your practice or to your marketing, and you get very activated, triggered, scared whenever you go to press the record button or press the live button. The way that titration would look here is you would start by recording voice memos privately. You're not showing them to anyone. You're not letting anyone listen to them. You are just doing them to get used to the act of using your voice and being imperfect and hearing that imperfection and being okay with it. So start with simple voice memos. The next step above that, after, and this is like the process of titrating, right? Adding layer by layer, right? Taking small little sips. So after you feel pretty comfortable doing those voice memos, record a video of yourself. Again, not sharing it with anyone, not giving yourself the pressure of putting it out there, but just keeping it for yourself and getting used to seeing yourself on camera and not nitpicking every little thing. Once you get really comfortable with that, you can share your pre-recorded videos with a small group of people that feel safe, right? So maybe a coach, a partner. If you're in a group coaching program with those people, close friends, and then you can move up to sharing a pre-recorded video publicly, and then you can move up to going live, unfiltered, unedited, right? So by the time you get to going live, it doesn't feel like this huge leap. You've already taken small little steps to get your nervous system to feel more comfortable with the act of going live and being on video, unedited. I'm always a big fan of breath work to do a slowdown moment. So box breathing is really helpful for slowing down your heart rate, for allowing yourself to pause and kind of self-regulate yourself before going into something that feels activating. And then I love affirmation work. The affirmations that I always teach my clients, because I do so much somatic work with them, is the I am safe affirmation. So whatever affirmation you want to add into your like daily ritual or whatever that is, and adding I am safe at the beginning of it. So I am safe to take imperfect action. It is safe for me to be unfiltered. It is safe for me to make mistakes. It's safe for me to be human. So I find that those are really helpful if I am feeling really scared of doing something in my business and I'm finding myself wanting to run away from it. So those are just a few things that come up for me whenever I think about like the flight response, the avoidance, the procrastination. The next response I'm going to talk about here is the freeze response. And this one is something that I see in a lot of my clients, is the feeling stuck, the feeling paralyzed, inability to take action. You know, what this looks like in your business is like staring at the post button, but unable to hit it. Maybe you're experiencing brain fog or going completely blank before a video. Like you have all these great ideas. Then whenever you go to execute, it just completely leaves you. I also think about, like, I've used this example of like going to a networking event and sitting in my car and not moving, right? Like I was sitting in my car and I froze for a moment. I almost debated, like, should I just not go in? And so avoiding like business growth opportunities altogether. I also like to think about like if somebody emails you or reaches out to you with a really beautiful opportunity to be in front of your ideal audience, right? A podcast interview, a speaking engagement, and you kind of pitter patter around and don't respond to them right away. You wait to respond, or maybe you even just don't respond. That's part of that like freeze response, feeling paralyzed. What this is protecting you from, what the freeze response is protecting you from is overwhelm from taking up too much space. Fear of stepping into that new identity as a leader or an expert, because in order to do that, in order to step into that leadership, into that new identity, there are parts of your past versions of yourself that you do have to let go of. And that is scary. So sometimes it is more comfortable to stay in a level of development that we are feeling good at, that we're feeling comfortable with, even if we know that that's not the truth of who we are. We know we're meant for more, but because it feels in our body, it feels more comfortable. This is where we want to stay. That's why we freeze. And that's why we stay stuck in these constant loops. And it's why we're unable to take action. So how to work through it? This is where I love incorporating somatic touch, right? So I love placing a hand. I usually feel, whenever I'm really activated about something, I usually feel it here in my chest, in my shoulders, and then in my jaw. Those are like the 2-3 like main places whenever my nervous system is really activated. That's where I feel it the most. And I love to add. I did this exercise with my group, I think a couple weeks ago, but I had them place a hand on their heart. And I had them think about a vulnerable story that they wanted to share with their audience, that they're a little scared to share with their audience. And I had them place their hand on the piece of their body, the area of their body where they felt that fear the most. They felt that vulnerability the most. For me, it's usually around my heart. If it's something vulnerable and if it's something I want to share, I'm usually feeling it from my heart space. And so I had them place a hand on that area of their body. And I had them, take a few deep breaths, and I had them add a little bit of pressure and move their hand in circular motions back and forth. Just a little bit of pressure. And I even invited them to like kind of sway back and forth and move their body as they did that, like however it felt comfortable. So you can do that. I also love the idea of using your voice. So humming, singing a song, whenever you breathe out, if you're taking deep breaths, like incorporating that long sigh and actually making a sound coming from your mouth, coming from deep in your chest. The thing with freeze response is that energy is stuck, right? That energy is stuck and it needs somewhere to go. So touch, movement, voice, like those are all things that you can use to kind of move that energy through, like that gentle rocking or humming to reactivate the body and re-engage the body. And then from that, again, going back to that practice of titrating, right? That slow layer over layer of expansion. Name one small action that you can take today to get yourself out of this freeze response. Let's take that example of like me going to that networking event and freezing in the car. What's one small thing that I can do to move forward, right? I don't have to get out of the car, but maybe I just open the door and sit here for a minute. Maybe I stand outside my car for a minute and breathe and take those moments to slow down, doing the somatic touch, like inching forward and slowly coaxing my nervous system, slowly making my nervous system feel safe to take those little tiny steps. The fourth response that I'm going to talk about here is the fawn response. So this is a sneaky one. This is a sneaky nervous system response because we don't always know that we're doing it. And it's the same with all the others. Like sometimes you're not super conscious of you being in that response, but the fawn response is probably the sneakiest out of all four. This is the people-pleasing one, right? This is that like diluting your voice. And so how it actually looks whenever you're trying to be visible for your business is maybe you adjust your messaging to please everyone. You don't want to single anyone out, so you make your messaging really broad and general. You avoid controversial topics for, fear of criticism, fear of offending someone, fear of stepping on people's toes. You say yes. You say yes to opportunities that don't align with you, right? So you take opportunities just because you think you should, or you think that this is kind of like the best you're going to get. So you say yes, even if it feels totally misaligned. So those are just some examples of how it might look in your business when you're trying to be visible, how that fawn response will actually show up and manifest. And this is what it's protecting you from. The fawn response is protecting you from abandonment, right? That fear of abandonment or conflict, the fear of being rejected if you show up authentically. And that is such a deeply rooted fear, right? It's a big one. It's a big one. And I've noticed that this is one of the hardest ones to work through is that fawn response. Because in order to work through this one, you really have to know what your truth is. You really have to feel confident and strong in your own identity separate from other people. So that does require a lot of inner work. It requires a lot of sitting with yourself. And the way to work through this is a lot of alone time, a lot of self-reflection, giving yourself the space to speak unfiltered, right? Earlier, I talked about voice memos, but it doesn't have to be voice memos. It can simply be writing, like it can simply be journaling, but recording a video or writing in your journal, completely stream of consciousness without worrying about your grammar, without worrying about who's going to see it, because nobody's going to see it. This is a private place for you to speak your unfiltered truth, even if it sounds horrible. Even if it sounds horrible. For any of you who have read The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron, she talks about a practice called the morning pages. And this is something that I also talk about in my Vibrant Visibility group, is giving yourself a space to let your voice come out without a filter, without having, like a magnifying glass on what you share. So having an unfiltered place, a safe place to speak your truth. And then I would also write down your non-negotiables, do kind of like a boundaries check-in. So what does feel in alignment for me, and how far am I willing to push that boundary, and where's the cutoff? Personal boundaries are such a hard topic to talk. I mean, I could probably go on a whole nother tangent about personal boundaries. And you know what? We're actually going to make that a separate episode because I can get into a spiral whenever it comes to boundaries. But that is one thing. Like, you want to, the purpose of boundaries is you want to have an idea of where you end and where others begin, right? This merging pattern is a typical manifestation of that fawn response, taking on other people's opinions or emotions or beliefs as your own. And so check in. Make sure you have a clear sense of what your personal boundaries are. Have a safe space to practice that authentic sharing, that unfiltered truth. And then always bringing in kind of like that I am safe affirmation. It's safe for me to be fully myself. It's safe for me to speak my truth, even if it sounds bad, even if it doesn't sound coherent, even if it doesn't make sense. Just giving yourself that permission to be fully yourself, however you're presenting, however it's coming up, and spend as much time there as possible so that you can feel safe in that place. And that safety can translate into the way that you show up and are visible in your business too. Each of these nervous system responses is not the enemy, right? We're not making it wrong. I have probably said this so many times during this episode, but it is not wrong to experience any of these responses, right? Your nervous system isn't the enemy here. It's just operating on outdated information. It's an outdated protective mechanism. And so the key here isn't forcing yourself through the visibility blocks. It's not trying to get rid of these responses, because honestly, that is never going to happen. That's never going to happen. It will always be there. It'll always be present. But what we can do is create a sense of safety, internal safety in your body, not reliant on what's happening in your external circumstances, so that showing up feels expansive and not threatening, right? How do we create this sense of safety in my body to show up even though I can't control the outcome? And so that's the thing. That's going to be the work here, is you have to allow yourself to feel safe when you are criticized, feel safe whenever you are judged for having a certain opinion about something, feel safe whenever somebody thinks that you're being salesy, even though that was not your intention, right? Because those things are going to happen. If the goal for you is to prevent any of those things from happening, you're in the wrong business. Like entrepreneurship just isn't the right pathway for you. But if you're willing to learn how to be okay with those things, how to create internal safety within your body to feel safe whenever somebody criticizes you, whenever you get rejected, whenever somebody says no to your offer, whenever somebody has a rude comment, that is going to be what takes your visibility game to a whole nother level. Right? You get to experience a whole new level of personal freedom by showing up in your business and all of your marketing with such authenticity that it doesn't matter who rejects you or who has something terrible to say about you. The people that resonate with you, it's inevitable for them to come to you and want to work with you and pay you money. So I have a worksheet that I'm going to give to all of you in the show notes here. It's called the Pre-Visibility Ritual. And I talk about this inside of my program as well. But I always recommend my clients, if they have trouble being visible, if they have that like nervous system response whenever they go to do anything with visibility in their business or marketing, I always recommend for them to create some kind of pre-visibility ritual. Which involves some kind of grounding practice, some kind of heart connection, like connecting to the message that you want to share, connecting to the work that you really want to do with people, what your deeper purpose as a coach or healer is. Incorporating the breath, incorporating sound, incorporating movement, and having some kind of intentional mantra or affirmation, especially around safety. Like, it's safe for me to be seen. It's safe for me to share my message. My message is important. Having some kind of mantra to ground yourself in before you do anything that requires you to be visible and vulnerable in your business. And it doesn't have to be this long 30-minute to an hour process. It can be a 30-second process. It doesn't have to take long. But the worksheet that I'm going to give to you guys in the show notes is going to help you create your own ritual that feels right for you, that you can do every single time you go to be visible. And I promise if you do this consistently, visibility will feel easier. It will feel easier. And it's not hard to do because it doesn't have to take long, right? You can take those 30 seconds before you hop on a discovery call with someone, before you go live, before you host a workshop, before you walk on stage to speak at that speaking gig. It is there, right? That pre-visibility ritual will always be there to support you. And that can be your strongest resource for feeling safe to be seen. And then afterwards, this isn't in the worksheet, but I do also think that it can be helpful to mention here, like, as well as a pre-visibility ritual, you also kind of want to have a post-visibility, like, nervous system reset process, right? So like shaking out your energy, maybe deep breathing again, doing some kind of movement. But I highly, highly encourage you to find something to celebrate about what you did, right? Because visibility takes courage. Being seen takes courage. It takes bravery. I want you to find a way to celebrate yourself for showing up, no matter what the outcome is. Like, that is a huge feat, especially if visibility is something that's very scary for you and very uncomfortable. Celebrate any small little thing that you do. And it can be helpful too to write down what went well, what felt challenging, what felt difficult, what would you like to try next time? Where might you need to ask for additional support? Who can you enlist on your support team to help you make this process of being more visible easier? All right, so to wrap this up, I just want to leave you with this here, that your nervous system is not broken. It is protecting you. It is doing its job. Okay. And with those somatic tools, with that awareness, you can create that safety within yourself to show up with ease, right? The safety that you need to feel like you can be visible and be okay. So this week, I want you to try one small visibility action using some of the tools that I talked about here, whether it's a post, a story, a live session. And I would love for you to share your experience with me. Feel free to send me a message on Instagram or Facebook or email me. I love hearing from you guys, and I love hearing what you're taking away from these episodes. Again, I'm going to have that pre-visibility ritual in the show notes for you, so you can download that. It's a free Google Doc. And I am currently enrolling for my next group of Vibrant Visibility. We start in March. The doors for Vibrant Visibility close on February 10th. So even if you are not quite sure if you want to be in this space, I would still put in the application for it, because I find that people who fill out the application answer those questions and they take the time to really sit with some of these reflection questions, and they get breakthrough just from filling in the application out. I'll put the application for that in the show notes too. And then I am doing a 4-day live series inside of my Facebook community, my free community, Visibility and Tech Support for Coaches. And it is going to be on this very topic. I'm going to kind of go through, like, each day we're going to focus on the different nervous system responses. And I'll actually kind of like dive a little bit deeper into how to move through some of those things. And I really hope that it's helpful for you guys. So you guys can sign up for that live series in the show notes as well. Everything's in the show notes, all of the links. So make sure to check that out. I'd love to hear from you guys. Just remember, it's safe for you to be seen, okay? Your nervous system doesn't want you to be, but it has a good reason. And so we have to meet that with compassion and grace and just allow ourselves to slowly move into that safety of feeling like we're okay to put ourselves out there. You know, the world needs you guys. The world needs you to show up and to talk about what you do and to share your gifts. This work is so, so important. And if this work is calling to you, I am happy to support you in whatever way that I can. All right, I'll see you guys next week. Bye. Thanks so much for tuning in today. If this was helpful for you, subscribe to the show to make sure you're always in the loop when a new episode is out. And I would love to invite you to join me in the free Visibility and Tech Support for Coaches community, where we hang out and chat about all things visibility, tech, systems, and heart-centered business building. I regularly share tips and tutorials and go live every now and then, and it's just nice to be in a community with other like-minded coaches and healers. So you can join this free space at alignwellco.com/community, and I can't wait to see you there.